Why are definitions so important when it comes down to data studies or any type of research that has to do with data? Why are baseline definitions so important? Well, we'll find out today on the Data Show. Buddy, my name is Chris Greco. For the next half hour, we'll be talking about data because this is the Data Show. Uh, But before we do all that, let's talk about AI for a second because that seems to be the growing thing, right? I always talk about balloon squeezers. The United States is a very short term thinking balloon squeezing nation. That's what we do. We take upon those things that seem to have that nice bright light thing going on. It's like when kids. I have a grandson, and man, anything bright and loud, boom, man, he's there with it. And this is what AI is all about. It's getting to the point where it's in every single media headline, every single media story, every single thing. We have to go about doing that. And I think the one story I heard from, I always tune in to Haystack News. Haystack News, absolutely fantastic. It's got everything. It's got all kind of different international international media stuff, and it's just great and it's free. So I just love it, and I tune into all these different types of news broadcasts: Al Jazeera, France 24, DW. All these different media outlets, and they're very, very good. The international ones, especially, but they're talking about AI, and this was from a U.S. I think it's from the U.S. I think it's from it might have been from an international link, but basically, it talked about AI, and AI, artificial intelligence, is based upon data. AI can only work if it gets data and then basically bounces that data off of other data and then bounces the data off of programming. So you filter certain things, you do certain things, and they found that artificial intelligence, what they did was they found that when you put in things like welfare or social services, things like that, they would come up with, if you asked them to bring up images of that, it would come up with people of minorities, specifically black people, black Americans, whatever you want to call them. And basically, what happens is that they said, "Hey, is there bias that goes into that?" And the problem is that AI can only do as well as the humans that are programming the AI, and humans do not have a very, very good, if any, handle on definitions. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And that's extremely important when we talk about data, because if you do not have good, solid definitions of the different variables, then by virtue of that, and consequently, what will happen is that you won't have good data because the data will be biased. So what I did was I thought, well, okay, let's see some of the data that the AI might be looking at and then making that judgment based on definitions. So the first thing I wanted to go to was a government website because I think it's important to be able to go there first because they usually have pretty good data sets and they have pretty good definitions. So the first place I went to was the Census Bureau. Census Bureau, very important. Who is receiving safety net benefits? So you take a look at this, and it's like you can actually filter by programs, households, individuals, whatever it is. So I filtered by program individuals, and it has Medicaid in different areas and 22.8, all these different things that are happening, right? But let's take a look at select characteristics. And what do we have? Race. 75.9% plus or minus, right? Uh, is getting social services. 13.4% of blacks are getting it. And then Asian 6.5 and some other race. So, white, black, Asian, and then some other race. So all these races are defined, they're defined by that area. So when we talk about 13.4%, among the total population, what exactly are we talking about? Well, when we talk about 13.4%, and I'm going to have to bring this down a little bit. I'm sorry, because I want you to see the entire definition here. So what happens is 43.6 million. 43.6 million are getting, and that's funny, among the total population, 13.4% are 43.6 million. Well, wait a minute. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, that you have, let's say you have 13%. So you had, I'm sorry, what was it? It was 13.4%. Well, all right. So if I have 13.4%, and I say, okay, 13.4, so I'm gonna go ahead and do 13.4, which was 0.134 times, let's say 340 million. That's going to be about 45 million people, right? Which is, I think that's pretty much what they said at 43.6 or 44 million. Okay, so plus or minus 0.1%, I think is the way that they phrase that. So that's what that is, plus or minus 0.1%, which is small, but basically that's what that is. So you sit back and you go, well, all right, so how many blacks are there in the United States? Well, here's the problem. Third largest racial or ethnic, this is the second largest racial ethnic, is 18.7%. So largest racial ethnic, and you take a look at the colors coding here. This is white alone, non-Hispanic or Latino. The United States has 57.8%. Black or African American alone, not Hispanic or Latino, is 12.1%. So you have 43 million that are on social services. All right, 12.1% of the total population, if this is the total population, is actually less than 13.4%. So think about this for just 1 second. The definition of race is very important, because if you are saying 43.6 million are on social services, and the total amount here is 12.1%, then that means that 100% of the blacks are on social services. So an AI that's going through this data set is sitting there going, well, wait a minute now, if they have 100% of the blacks, Americans that are on social services, the minute you put in welfare or any type of social service, you're going to come up with an image of a black American. And this is where the definition is so important. So I started to look at this stuff, and I went into the census, about the topic of race. So it talks about the different aspects, right? White, a person having origins in any of the original peoples of Europe, the Middle East, or North Africa. This is where the term African American has a real problem. First of all, I don't like hyphenation anyways, period. That's just my personal opinion. People can say, no, that's not right, whatever else. I don't care. The bottom line is the minute you start saying Black or African American, a person having origins in any of the Black racial groups of Africa. Wait a minute. So you're splitting Africa into basically North Africa and all the Blacks in Africa. Well, this is a problem to me, because an Egyptian is from Africa. Now, you can sit there and you can tell me till the sky is green that, that's not true. And I'm going to show you exactly why it is true. That you go to Google Earth, and let's take a look at Africa. And if you take a look at Africa, which is interesting here, take a look at Africa, and what does it show? It shows Africa. I mean, we sit back and we go, duh, there's Africa. Here's Africa, folks. Here is Egypt. Here's Egypt right here. This is Egypt. It's in Africa. This is Africa. Egypt is part of Africa. Yes, they call it North Africa. You can call it whatever you want. It's part of Africa. And I love the way that they regionally kind of chop that out there and say, yeah, but you take Libya. Well, Libya, they talk about the black racial groups of Africa. Well, is that Sudan? Sudan is literally right below Egypt. Literally right below Egypt. They share a border, folks. They share a border right here. So you're telling me that Egypt is completely different. They're considered white, whereas Sudan is considered black. Think about this just for a second. That it's just like, whoa. I mean, if you just take into consideration that area, this is biased. This is a biased data set. I mean, because it doesn't properly, appropriately do that. American Indian or Alaskan Native, Asian, Far East, Southeast Asia, or the Indian subcontinent, including, for example, Cambodia, China, India, Japan, Korea, Malaysia, Pakistan, and the Philippine Islands, Thailand, and Vietnam. Pakistan is considered to be Asian. Why is that? Why is not Afghanistan considered to be Asian? They are Southwest Asia. They are Southwest Asia. It's considered to be South. It wasn't Mideast. Everyone talked to me about Afghanistan and said, oh, Afghanistan, the Middle East. No, whoa. No. It is Southwest Asia. It is actually part of Asia. And people looked at me like I had 9 heads. I'm telling you, and again, let's go there. We take a look at Asia and we take a look at all these different areas. Now, here's the Mideast in this area. There's all kind of issues going on. And here's Iran, right? Here's Afghanistan. Here's Pakistan. Afghanistan is nowhere near the Middle East, folks. Here's Afghanistan. You got to go through Iran. You got to go through Iran just to get to the Middle East in this area. This is Afghanistan, not near the Middle East, not near the Middle East. So it's this, this definition aspect. And I'm sorry to bring in the worldview here in my other show, but dadgummit, people have to get more geographically smart here. I mean, they got to understand what they're dealing with in the world. Right now, all we're worried about is the United States, period. That's it. Boom, 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 boom. And that's what I'm addressing today is data within the United States. But the worldview shows that we're all part of this area. We're descendants of all this area. I happen to be descendants of individuals that were from Italy. Okay, Europe. Yes. Okay. I'm European, whatever you want to call it. I have European predecessors, right? So that's my deal. But I mean, it gets almost ridiculous when we talk about that. And this is the 1997 OMB, Office of Management and Budget standards permit the reporting of more than one race. Here we go. So now, we talk about this. And what is race? The data on race was derived from answers to the question on race that was asked of individuals in the United States. It is a survey-based question. Surveys are notoriously biased. Polls, notoriously biased. People sit there and say, would you vote for X or Y? Well, the people that are answering that question are going to tell you, but you can't, to extrapolate that to everyone in the United States, doesn't work. It never has worked. And it's hilarious to watch these polls sit there and say, well, it's plus or minus this, and it's got the margin of error, blah, 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 all the crap that they throw at you. But the bottom line is it's a guess. Now, you can sit back and say it's a relatively intelligent guess because they try to put the statistical processes into play, but the bottom line is still a guess. Things happen outside this area. Bayesian probability, again, not to beat a dead horse, but I think I beat it to death, the dead horse. But that's basically what we have, right? Including census, generally reflect a social definition of race recognized in this country and not an attempt to define race biologically, anthropologically, or genetically. I love the way they do this. So basically, I can say that I'm any race based on what I've been told as a family, through the family or whatever else. I can put that down, and now boom, that's what I am according to the census. So, people may choose to report more than one race to indicate their racial mixture, such as American Indian and white. People who identify their origin as Hispanic, Latino, or Spanish may be of any race. Interesting, right? So, I mean, OMB requires 5 minimum categories: white, black, or African American, which is interesting because Egyptian is African American. Egyptian is African American. Yet, According to the definition, they are white. Why? Because they specifically state Europe, Middle East, or North Africa. I love the way that they just do that. So when we talk about South Africa, is that African American? Because I mean, Charlize Theron and a couple of the other ones, Elon Musk, they're African American folk. If you're gonna press that hyphenation deal, they are African American, South African, but they're African American. So now this is because basically they are a person having origins. I love it. Origin the black racial groups of Africa. That's so basically they would be white. That doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. But they're not. I mean, they're African American. If you're gonna do that, this African American thing. So I love the way they do this. I mean, it's really, really, really screwed up from the standpoint of that. And Census has been trying to figure this thing out forever. So I get it. So then they go through a whole research, right? Research to improve data on race and ethnicity, right? All right, since the first census, Census Bureau has collected information on race ethnicity. Since 1970s, Census has conducted content tests to research and improve the design. So OMB guidelines, race and ethnicity. Here we go. Some race, increasing number of respondents have been racially classified as some other race. Some other race. It's primarily due to reporting by Hispanics, who make up the overwhelming majority of those classified as some other race. Not identifying with any of the OMB race categories. In addition, segments of the other populations, such as Afro-Caribbean, I'm trying to figure this hyphenation, and Middle East and North Africa populations did not identify with any of the OMB race categories identified as SOR. So here we go. Now we start. Middle Eastern and North African populations. There we go. I mean, we're right into that, what I just said. So all of a sudden they're in some other race. They're not counted. So again, getting back to AI, what does AI work with this? AI does not work with this. They take the data and AI uses the data, period. That's what it does. It calls all these different data sources, one of which is Census. I'm sure. If it's not, shame on them. And basically what happens is that they try to figure out, AI tries to figure out what to do and ends up putting up what looks like racist or biased photos because it's biased data. If it's biased data, it's going to be biased images. I mean, come on. It just works that way. So this is what's happening here with all this. So they're trying to figure out what to do with that. Then it says exploring the racial and ethnic diversity of various age groups. So now we talk about various age groups when it comes to this, right? So under age 18 were more racially and ethnically diverse than the population 18 and over because they are self-identifying. This is very, 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 very important. People in surveys self-identify. There's no way you can sit back and check that except if you make everyone take a DNA test. And after what happened with 23andMe and they ended up getting hacked, I doubt very much if people are going to be going out there doing DNA testing anymore. So, I mean, that's going to be a tough situation. Sorry, that was a news story, came out, so hopefully they got that straightened out. So that's a situation, and then each of these, under 5 years, 5 to 17, 35 to 44, 100 years and older, all that, why are we doing this under 5 years, 5 to 17 years? 5 to 17 years covers a lot of years. That's 12 years, and impressionable years. And plus, you're talking about going through adolescent. You're going from basically 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Bang! All of a sudden, you're in 10 years old. You're going through adolescence, all these areas, and then you get to 17, and all of a sudden, it breaks off at 18. Why does it break off at 18? A lot of people sit back and they go, "Oh, well, that's because you can vote at 18." Really? You can also own a gun at 18. That's something that's, are we breaking that off because of that? And also now it's it's 6 years here, but then it's 9 years here, but then it's 9 years here, then it's 9 years, 9 years, 9 years. Why 6 years here? Why didn't we just say 5 to 14 years, 14 to 23, right? And then 24 to 34 and go 10 years. Why didn't do that way? So this breakup is kind of like, we're just going to make that happen because there's no consistency until you get to 25 and then all of a sudden everything is good. So this is the situation where we have this. So then there's a card. interestingly enough. There is a card where you're talking about different race, right? So here's the race. Here's the races that are allowed to be in the surveys. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's what you got. That's what you got to pick. Some people sit there and say, "Oh, it's interesting. I'd like to know where is a Hispanic." And the thing is, when you go back, you sit back and go, uh, for example, I mean, I don't see any Hispanic, right? I don't see any Hispanic here. Maybe it's in here somewhere. So, and it says, upon an individual response to the race question is based upon self-identification, what I just said. So, I mean, this is, everyone sits back and goes, "Oh, yeah, Chris, you're making too much of a deal of this." No, I'm not. Okay, let's go to here. Here is the CDC Wonder, which is what a lot of groups are basing um, studies on, right? They're basing data studies on. And, census division goes different areas there, region, location, age adjusted, standard error for rates, which is really nice. Confidence interval, it says that. So I want to go up here to race, age adjusted rates. Should be, so all this is how this is done, the different areas. And population, summary, underlying cause of death by single race. So if we do all that, it's about race. So race and Hispanic origin are reported separately on the death certificate in accordance with standards set forth by the Office of Management and Budget. American Indian. Race category includes North, Central, and South American Indians. Interesting. Eskimos and Aleuts. Hispanic origin was not reported on the death certificate for some deaths. Information included on death certificate about the race. This is because this is death aspects. For deaths 218-21, mortality rate available by single race categories in these three lists. So basically, it's there, and this is it. Population estimates are U.S. Census Bureau estimates, but you see that CDC has a slightly different look at race than the Census Bureau. They're both government agencies. This is where, as a former government employee, both military and civilian and contractor, I'm going to tell you that it happens this way between agencies all the time. It's like, come up with a race thing and stick with it. And everybody does the same thing. So you have very consistent data pulls. And that's why AI it sometimes doesn't know what to do. It just pulls all this stuff, calls it, and boom, it kicks out whatever it is. And it comes out to be like biased results because it's biased data. Let me just, again, beat the dead horse. So you have all this stuff, and this is what, this is the explanation of what goes on there when it comes down to, this stuff. So, I mean, this is how it's done. The CDC Wonder, it goes through the entire thing of how every single one of these things is done, and explains it and everything else. And this is interactive, and it's so funny to watch some of this stuff. And what single race categories are available for calculating rates? Okay, six race categories. Whoa. 6 race categories. So let's take a look at this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 5 in Census Bureau. How many we have here? 6. You have American Indian, Alaskan Native, Asian, number 2, Black or African American, more than one race, Native American or other Pacific Islander, white. So those are the 6 categories that they have there. So this is what we have, right? To analyze death in years 1990 by 4 bridged race categories: American Indian or Alaskan Native, Asian, Pacific Islander, Black or African American, white. See the underlying cause of death, 1999 to 2020. So that because the census was in 2020. So I've changed this. Hopefully they change this in 2021. For the next one, census that they will also have these 6 race categories. So that's what's going on. For more information on race and mortality data, see race and ethnicity reporting. So all this stuff is in there. So now let's take a look at the different changes in diversity and how that all worked. And this is a race and ethnic prevalence by state 2020. So all the states have these different areas, and they have some neat looking maps, interactive maps, all these things, prevalence maps. The most prevalent race or ethnicity group by county. So this is white, basically white alone, not Hispanic. This is it. So let's say what the second one is. So the second one is the second most prevalent, and it's interesting because it says, however, other racial groups were most prevalent in certain parts of the country. So this is the second most prevalent. So white alone, non-Hispanic. So look at the second prevalent here. I mean, you go from this, which is the most prevalent, to the second prevalent, which is here. Hispanic or Latino, you'd expect it there. This is Black or African Americans, expect it here. This is 2 or more races, non-Hispanic, up in this area, Northeast. So all these areas, I mean, you can see where all this stuff is based on categories that to me are somewhat arbitrary. And self-identification is done to confirm this. Self-identification is done to confirm this. Self-identification is the worst part of bias. Self-identification, the worst part of bias, worst part of it. You can self-identify anything. I mean, you can take a survey and completely screw up the entire data set by doing what needs to be done. And this proves it right here. I mean, this is a situation where you have 12.1% is the third largest ethnic or racial group, and that is Black or African American alone, not Hispanic or Latino, right? And 12.1% of that, and yet they're saying 13% are on social services. Can you understand how it's just like, I don't understand. You're telling me that 100% of the Blacks in this country carry some type of social service, and that ends up biasing the AI because of definitions, purely because of definitions. And that's where it's very important to understand that, and that how definitions can in fact skew an entire data set, push it a certain way, and that AI will pick that up, and then it'll call other areas, and pretty soon it comes out with a biased result. I do not like AI. I do not like it. Sam, I don't like it. I never will like it. It is artificial. Hence the first term, artificial intelligence. Artificial. It's not real intelligence. And it gets every single one of its inputs from what I perceive to be very biased data. And it's got to be, held accountable for that, or the programs have to be held accountable for that, or the makers have to be held accountable for that when situations happen that in fact they're not liable for. The artificial intelligence people are not responsible, not accountable for things that go wrong in AI. They're not. It's kind of like, oh, we did it, but hey, if people use it, then it's a user's ability. And we have this disclaimer here, and this is what happens, and those types of things go on. So that's what we talk about when we talk about artificial intelligence. So next time we're going to talk about is the ability to try to unbias some of this data and be able to make it more consistent so that the data that's taken from it will be able to go and do good things, whether it be artificial intelligence or statisticians or anybody else, research people that will be able to use this stuff with all good conscience, right? With all good conscience. So until that time, this is Chris Greco saying, thank you for watching the Data Show, and we will see you next time. Take care.